Hello, everyone. Good morning, afternoon, or evening. Welcome to Bet the Edge. Thanks, everyone, watching live on our NBC Sports YouTube channel or listening and podcast forum. It's V Money and the Wk5 in the building yet again, breaking down college football week 5 and Thursday night football between the Lions and Packers at Lambeau Field. But before we get into that, Drew, we got some breaking news. Damian Lillard traded to the Bucks. We got Portland getting Drew Holiday, DeAndre Ayton, and some first-round draft picks, unprotected and swapping. We got Nurkic, Grayson Allen, and Keon Johnson, plus Nasir Little going to the Suns. So a big deal that leaves the Bucks as the favorites to win the NBA Finals and the Eastern Conference. What are your thoughts? Overreaction or not?
Wow. So many thoughts. It's going to be tough to keep this concise, but I'm going to do my absolute professional best. At face value, this was a win-win-win. I think the Bucks clearly move into higher likelihood that they win a championship this year, albeit it comes with great risk. They are now a very thin team. They presumably wouldn't have made this move unless they had a plan of how they were going to address the point of attack defense in some playoff matchups. Because now, I mean, the Celtics in a particular playoff matchup, you're going to need a better plan at point of attack than what you currently have rostered in terms of guard play and guard defense in particular. But that said, this is a win now move, and it leaves the cupboard relatively bare for the Bucks after this season and next. This season being their absolute best chance to win an NBA title, a second NBA title with Giannis. And next season being kind of the closing of the window, the way I look at sort of the age and the progression of these players at the core. So risky for the Bucks, but I kind of understand why they're doing this. And I really can't totally fault them for it. And I really hope they have a plan for adding one more piece for the defensive purposes. I think Portland is a winner because they got back a lot. And usually when a superstar says, get me out of here, the return is rarely dollar for dollar. And I think ultimately what the Trailblazers receive beyond just kind of creating opportunity for some of their young players to get more playing time. I'm not expecting Drew Holiday to ever put on a Blazers uniform. He is likely another trade pick to acquire more future draft capital. But they're set up fairly well here to continue to build through the future. And I think that was pretty wise moves by them. And then the Suns getting involved in a way that they kind of move on from a disgruntled DeAndre Ayton, who obviously was not capable of defending Nikola Jokic in a playoff series, and kind of giving themselves more roster flexibility around their three superstar guards and wings. Like, yeah, that all makes sense. And I think ultimately these three teams, the Portland franchise gets better for the future. The Bucks give themselves a better chance to win now. And the Suns gave themselves a little more roster flexibility and a little bit more depth. So win-win-win for now. But boy, oh boy, Milwaukee Bucks fans, like, I hope you get a championship out of this, because the 2028, 2029, 2030 kind of time horizon for this franchise is going to be rough.
Yeah. No, I'm right there with you. I like this trade. I just did a Roto World basketball show, which we're going to have to get you on at some point this season, Drew. But we were breaking this down. And when I first initially saw the news, I only saw the trade with I saw Ayton, Nurkic, and then Damian Lillard's name. So I thought there is no way that's what just happened. But then once all the news came out with the picks, extra players, I'm like, that makes a lot more sense for all parties involved. And I'm with you. I think Drew Holiday does get traded. Landing spots for him could be anywhere like Miami, Chicago, Brooklyn, one of the LAs. So Philadelphia with James Harden on the trade block. So there's a lot of potential here for the NBA to continue with moves being made, and we will be covering that for sure. But I agree with your breakdown completely. Before we change topics, do you think the Bucks should be the favorite to win it all and the Eastern Conference?
Yeah, I mean, it's fragile, but as rostered, assuming that we're going to get something of a bounce out of Chris Middleton, at least for this season, you have a really good core. And I'm again kind of reaching for, they have a plan of who to kind of fill out their starting five, someone with a little bit more defensive flexibility than Pat Connaughton, but we shall see. And I think the margin between the Bucks and the Celtics is a little closer than the current numbers we have up, which have Bucks at plus 175, Celtics at plus 225. I think it's a coin flip, and I give the Bucks a slight edge just because their offense now, and one of the huge criticisms of the Budenholzer Bucks, even with the championship on their resume, that half-court offense was pretty pathetic come playoff time, and now it's going to be pretty dynamic. So they definitely solved one of the substantial issues with getting over the hump in the playoff series. The big question for me is just what do they do defensively besides rim protection, which is going to be outstanding. Is that going to be potentially an Achilles heel?
Yeah, I'm going to wait and try and get a 3-1 odds price on Milwaukee to win the East. I think that's kind of the target number that I was looking for. Don't feel completely comfortable taking them over Boston in the East yet, but I do think Boston's depth got a little weaker this season, especially outside of the top 7. So that's something worth noting. As we switch gears, Drew, from NBA to college football, we have been on a heater the past 3 weeks with college football. We have done our thing. And this game for me that we're going to kick it off with is a Friday night game, 9 p.m. Eastern, Utah, number 10 Utah, visiting number 19 Oregon State. The Beavers are laying 3 points as a home favorite. This game, to me, screams home team or pass in Oregon State. Now, historically, Utah has not done well against Oregon State. They're 4-8 ATS in the last 12. But Utah played one road game this year, Drew, at Baylor. We both watched that game and talked about that game and how we're taking Utah to cover the 5.5. They needed 2 touchdowns while they were trailing to come back and cover that number. Not nearly as strong as a road team as a home team because of the atmosphere and being higher up in Utah, the elevation. So This is Oregon State or pass. Any read on this?
No, you're 1,000,000% correct. And I saw this one on the schedule as we were looking at Utah last week and kind of breaking down where they stand, trying to get a read on the quarterback situation, lauding the offensive coordinator and what they did. And then they roll out and score 14 points against UCLA, albeit in a win. I had this game circled as, oh man, I hope that opens under a field goal, because this is going to be a decent time to sell high on Utah. Utah's offense and just in general, some of the, contributions they're getting from their skill position players and, the way that UCLA was able to defend them, I think exposes and really kind of puts together a decent little game plan here for the Beavers. So I was hoping to get a 2.5, maybe 3. At 3.5, it's a pass for me. But I agree with you. I could not make a realistic case here as why the number 10 team in the country, the Utah Utes, catching 3.5 on the road against Oregon State is not a bet. But we're about to enter the part of the season where the Pac-12 is going to cannibalize each other, and it's going to be nasty. And I think, if you give me a neutral, just give me any Pac-12 game and ask my opinion, it's probably going to be home team or pass.
Yeah, and I'll mention too, because we do an NBC top 25 pool for college football every week. Eric Photon, Brad Thomas, and myself, and we collectively had Utah at number 10 also. But I don't think that's going to last. I definitely, Oregon State lost last week in a game where I faded them against Washington State. But I think this is a great bounce back spot at home for Oregon State. So they're going to climb the rankings. Utah should lose. I would lay the 3. But it may be my only Friday night bet, so I might just take the money line, Drew, and risk a smaller unit size. I don't care. So let's talk about USC and Colorado, because this is the most bet game. Once again, Colorado is getting more bets than NFL teams almost every single weekend right now. I mean, the Deion Sanders primetime effect has been ridiculous, but we just saw them absolutely shellacked by the Oregon Ducks. Now, I will note USC laying 21.5 at Colorado, total sitting at 73.5. USC's offense should have no problem scoring, but USC's defense not nearly equivalent to Oregon's. So I do think Colorado looks better here. Is that enough to take them plus 21.5? Not totally sure here. What do you think, Drew?
I mean, we're back in the same question, Vaughn. This is Pac-12 matchup. Home team or pass is kind of my rubric for evaluating these. USC is good. I don't think ultimately, they're going to survive a very, very challenging Pac-12 unscathed. At some point, the bill's going to come due for these guys because, as you pointed out, their defense is very porous. Nothing bad to say about the offense. I don't know that I'm seeing a ton of growth from where they were last year, and maybe, they have some wrinkles that they just haven't put on tape yet because they're saving them for later in the, in the calendar year. But that said, they're a much better team than Colorado, and 21.5 points obviously speaks to that. And I think realistically, the Colorado defense is, they're going to concede 50 here, which means in order to get to covering a 21.5, Colorado is going to need to score 30 plus. In the absence of some of their key contributors and just in general with, a little bit of the stink hanging over them from last week, I'm not sure we see an awesome bounce back here. So this was another pass for me, but I couldn't in good conscience in any way, shape, or form lay 21.5 points with USC with this defense on the road. It's going to be just a miserable experience from whistle to whistle.
Yeah, the only way, which you hit it on really well, was the USC team total. They should score 50-plus points in this game, at least 41 on them, 42. So that is the angle of attack for me. Obviously, if you have player props, I'll continue to say it every single week. Shedeur Sanders over passing yards. That is the only offense that the Colorado team does have, and they have so many receivers. So I would take a Sanders over passing or Caleb Williams, because Caleb Williams, he's now not the Heisman favorite. Michael Penix out of Washington is the Heisman favorite. Which was also Brad Thomas's pick this year at 18-1. So shout out to him. But Caleb Williams, if you're going to have a game to get back in the Heisman ballot to be first place, it's against Colorado, right, Drew?
I mean, obviously, because Colorado is not going to shy away from, some teams when they realize their defense is overmatched, they pivot into a little bit more conservative game plan. They try to eat some clock. They try to have some 12 play drives that really kind of make the game a little bit less likely that it gets away from them. Not Colorado, not based on what we saw last week. So
your face looks surprised when I said Penix is now the favorite to win the Heisman.
I was surprised by that. I have not been following the Heisman market closely at all. I'm kind of shocked. Not that I mean, I get why people are kind of cooling on Caleb Williams. I mean, he's the best player, but it's not about who's the best player. It's about the best performances. And Washington is obviously Washington is nuclear hot right now. But it's a pretty flat market this year. I think there's probably 5 candidates with a very realistic chance. And I have my sneaking suspicion that there's a certain Oklahoma quarterback who's being overlooked, who might be a fun bet at a pretty long price right now.
Oh, I like that, sneaking that in there. Yeah, I can't talk Heisman much more because Sam Heisman is no longer in contention after that Ohio State debacle. Only having 10 players on the field on the final play. What the heck, man? But let's talk about Kansas and Texas, Drew. A top 25 matchup. Not many of them this week compared to last week. We got the Longhorns laying 17 points at home, over under 64. Kansas has actually owned the series against the spread, even when they were a bad team. Now they are good now, but they were 5-1 against the spread in the last 6 against Texas. And I mean, with Jalen Daniels at quarterback for Kansas, dual threat, I lean Rock Chalk Jayhawk here. But after we do our promo break, I do have 4 bets on the show, Drew, and I think they're all much better than Kansas plus 17. But if I was betting this one, I would take the Jayhawks here.
It's the Jayhawks here for me too. Road dog that I think is actually kind of quasi live. This is again, no disrespect to Texas. Texas is good. I don't know if you remember this matchup from last year, but Kansas versus Texas was a game of high interest. Kansas was winning games unexpectedly. Daniels was kind of breaking out, and I believe that they may have gone off as home favorites in that one. Don't quote me. And it was a very sharp professional opinion to bet Texas that day. But I will just kind of tell you that the gap between the two teams in terms of talent is not 17 points. It's way closer than that. I don't know that Kansas can ultimately win, but can they go score for score? Can they make Texas life a little bit uncomfortable? Absolutely. I think Kansas is the bet here. I don't think you're going to get better than 16.5. So, you're not, if you're sitting around hoping and praying that this ticks to 17 to get your action down, Yeah, I wouldn't count on it. I think everybody's pretty much kind of lining up waiting for that too. And maybe it happens and maybe I'm wrong. I mean, Texas is obviously a pretty well-supported side from, just from a volume standpoint. But I like Kansas to keep this like a 2-score game. And ultimately, if I was going to do like a round robin of super long shot dogs, Kansas would be in the mix for me this week.
Yeah, no, definitely one of my teams I was considering for my money line sprinkles for our Saturday show. And you mentioned last year the line. Texas won that game against Kansas at Kansas, 55-14.
It was not close.
No, but they also had the man, the myth, the legend, and Bijan Robinson, who ran for 243 yards and 4 touchdowns. He's not at Texas anymore. So yeah, I'm with you, Drew. I think it's Kansas or pass here. And touching quickly on this game, this is probably my least confident game. Notre Dame at Duke, another top 25 matchup. Notre Dame laying only 5.5 after that loss to Ohio State at home. The total's at 52.5. I could only look towards the under here. Duke hasn't allowed more than 14 points in any game so far. That'll probably happen here, but I don't expect Notre Dame to go over too much. And for the Fighting Irish, I mean, you cannot lose 2 weeks in a row or your season's over. So I definitely expect the Notre Dame defense to be very strong here, and on the road they have to be. So I'd only look at the under 52.5, but I don't have a strong feel in this game. Do you?
I think the Golden Domers can lose 2 in a row, Vaughn. Duke a little bit underpriced here. I make the fair here 3.5, and obviously like 5 and 4 are not wildly important numbers in football. Everybody should already know that who's listening to us. But that said, I do think Duke is pretty close to this team. Notre Dame dealing with a couple of injuries and missing pieces. I think we've talked about Notre Dame a ton on the balance of this season, coming in with a little bit low expectations for the offense because of scheme question marks. Those were answered, but now it's more about personnel. They're starting to lose and really deal with some injuries to some key folks in the skill position group. And for those reasons, I think they match up pretty poorly with, as you said, a very, very talented Duke defense. Duke, obviously the standout win for them this season, came against Clemson week 1, which feels like a million years ago. But they haven't slipped up since.
Yeah.
They have not really been sleeping on, haven't been sleeping on the success that they've, that's kind of rare for a program like Duke. Yeah. If you didn't know that. But
what if I told you this, Drew? Notre Dame has won 29 straight against ACC opponents. Does that scare you at all?
Ooh, interesting. That's a big long stretch.
That's got to end at some point, though. And I would not be shocked. They beat NC State earlier this year, but I would not be shocked to see the Duke Blue Devils be the one.
There were some close calls in there. And I think ultimately if Notre Dame squeaks out a 3-point win, I won't be surprised. But yeah. I think this is going to be a competitive game. And I think if you're going to sit down and watch this one in its entirety because you love either of these teams and or just you love live betting college football, I like taking Duke on at a price pre-game and then maybe looking for an opportunity to back Notre Dame to come back in this one. Notre Dame has done a pretty nice job, I think, of making some good halftime adjustments this season. I still believe in their head coach as a good head coach. So, and as you kind of mentioned, their defense is good, which means if Duke is carrying a lead here, can Notre Dame's defense step up and just in general give the Domers more opportunities? Then the answer for that is definitely yes. And so I think taking the 5.5 on the way in and looking for an opportunity to catch Notre Dame as a live dog with the deficit would be my strategy here.
Yeah, no, I like that a lot. If Notre Dame scores first, I'd go to the window on Duke as a home dog, especially from getting over 7 or near 10 points. So okay. I'm with you. It's your alma mater, Drew. I got to believe, but they did beat Clemson, and Notre Dame now has their season. I don't want to say it's over, but once you lose one game, all the pressure's on you, and they still have USC on their schedule as well, plus some other tough games. So sorry, Sam Heisman. I was wrong about you. But I want to say Saturday, September 30th at 11 a.m. Eastern, Brad Thomas, Eric Froton, and myself are answering all your college football betting questions for Week 5. All you have to do is tune into our NBC Sports YouTube page to hear more of our thoughts on multiple top 25 matchups, including Kansas traveling to Austin to face Quinn Ewers and number 3 Texas. You'll also hear my best bets I'm not gonna lie, Drew. I'm number one on the show. I got the best record, best bet record also, and money line sprinkle record. So come make some money with the boy on Saturday.
I would ask you what your best bet is now, but I know you, and you're gonna make me tune in to find out, like everyone else. There's no favors. There's no favors for friends. You gotta tune in to find out.
Well, the crazy thing is, I'm debating on giving it here in the next two, not this game we're talking about, but the following one. So now for the rest of the show, these are all official picks for me. It's stuff I've already locked in. So and it's Big Ten football, baby. You know I love it. So let's talk about Penn State Northwestern first, Drew. Total's 45.5, 44.5 at some places. Penn State's laying 27.5 to 28 points. Northwestern had one hell of a comeback last week against Minnesota. But when I tell you that it will not happen ever again, it is not. I definitely look at this game and say Northwestern does not have enough offensive juice at home to score more than 7 points on Penn State. The team total is 9.5, Drew. I've been crushing team totals all season, especially unders. Penn State held Northwestern to 6 or 7 points in 3 of the last 4 meetings. And this year, Northwestern, their 2 losses at Rutgers and Duke, only scored 7 and 14 points. So this is an easy fade. Penn State's defense, elite, top 10 unit. Northwestern's offense, garbage. Give me the team total under 9.5.
That's fair. Okay. I'm not going to disagree with you. The last time you called this type of a bet out was Rutgers. And I believe we said, if they score a touchdown early, are we going to be sweating it for the rest of the game? You're like, don't worry about it. First quarter, game script goes great. Don't worry about it. They did score a touchdown in the first quarter, and they finished third play of the game, and then they finished with 7 points. So I think your read though is fair. Northwestern's in deep trouble here. The Nittany Lions defense is absolutely elite, no questions asked. And I think you're talking about a Northwestern squad here that doesn't really have any type of game breakers that match up well to the tune of even getting a lucky score here. So that's a fun way to attack it. Team total under 9.5 is narrow margin, but a shutout could very well be swirling here. Penn State has played better offenses and absolutely throttled them. So I understand why you would have some confidence there.
Yeah, we're going 38-6, calling my shot here. I think, Penn State looks elite, and they've been, they're going to be one of the best teams in the country throughout the whole season. So I like their defense, but not as much as I like the Michigan Wolverines defense, Drew. Okay. I have bet Michigan's defense, the opponent's team total under, now 4 weeks in a row. We are 4-0. So what am I doing again? Best bet, Michigan team total under, Nebraska team total under. 10.5 points is what we're riding, which is a key number here. Michigan's only allowed 2 touchdowns all season in 4 games. Nebraska, in their 2 losses this season, they scored 10 and 14 against Minnesota and, get this, Colorado. Michigan's defense should have no issue shutting down this Cornhuskers team, especially considering 2 of the last 3 meetings against Michigan, they've scored 10 and 3 points. So once again, I'm going another team total under in the Big Ten, and I'm fading Nebraska as the home dog.
Again, I can't argue with you. Michigan and Penn State, if you want to highlight, and if you're the kind of person that really lives for Big Ten football, lives for the hard fought defenses, the bruising offensive lines. I mean, Michigan Wolverines so far this season are just absolutely cut in your ideal mold for Big Ten football. It's cool to watch. It's cool to see. They can, and what's special about a team that has those characteristics, Vaughn, they travel. That's the kind of identity that you can take on the road and into a hostile environment like Nebraska. And you can still exercise your will on a team that you are just eons more talented than. So my look on this one was going to be Michigan State 17.5. To me, that looks about 4 points too low. I think this should be on the other side of 21. And no disrespect to Nebraska's defense, who's been fine this year, but they're coming up against a much more talented unit than they have been facing so far. This is a team that conceded, is 36 points to a Colorado squad on the road early in September, and I think Michigan can better that and get into the low 40s here. So if we're both right, this is a pretty easy cover for 17.5. And I think Michigan is a bet on, considering what I've seen from them in terms of quality of play so far this season.
Yeah, I think Michigan is the right side, although they have not covered a single spread this season. I think they've just been a little overvalued, especially with Harbaugh being out. They weren't looking to run up the score. They were looking to run their offense, run their defense, and play Michigan brand football. And that's literally what they've done so far. So I'm with you. I think Michigan could cover. I'll rock with the team total under. And I'm going to run it back again. I think this is another team. I had to pick up this dog Pepito here because he won't stop crying. And I think Michigan State's offense, Drew, is another team that's going to be crying on Saturday. They're going to Iowa. Iowa's now a 12.5-point favorite. Was laying 11. Total sit at 36.5. This game is on NBC and Peacock at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. Michigan State, in their last two games they've lost against Washington and Maryland, they've scored 7 and 9 points. Now they're going on the road to Iowa, who just got blasted 31-0 by Penn State. Ultimate bounce-back game at home. And the last time Michigan State visited Iowa, although, Drew, it was during COVID season, Michigan State lost that game 49-7. All right. With no Mel Tucker, offense in limbo, and the quarterback situation not good for the Spartans, I'm taking an odd number of under 11.5 team total for Michigan State. No idea why we're seeing 11.5 as a number, but I'll take it.
I just took the full game under, man. These are two of the worst offenses and some of the better defenses in all of college football. Michigan State and Iowa among the Power Five. I'm looking at my numbers right now. Only Iowa State, Indiana, and UConn are grading for me as worse offenses. So you're talking about two of the bottom five going head to head here. This is going to be a rock fight. 36.5 is wildly low. But if you remember earlier this season, you got a similar kind of price in Iowa State, and Iowa again, kind of a couple broken plays early, scored early, put a little pressure on that total. It finished with like 26 points or something. Like it really was not that close. So you want to isolate a team total under, go for it. I'm just going to stick with the full game under here because I think this is a game that's probably decided by field goals, and it is probably one that you will remember for the defense.
Yeah, and the total has gone under 4 of the last 5 games for Michigan State and 6 of the last 9 meetings between the two Big Ten programs. So agreeance. I like your look a lot there. And it is now time, Drew, to talk NFL. We've been killing on Thursdays. But before that, it's an AFC clash this Sunday night. You can catch Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs traveling east to score off with Garrett Wilson and the Jets. Coverage begins at 7 p.m. Eastern, only on NBC and Peacock. Chiefs are laying 9.5 points. Kind of like that spread there because Zach Wilson's still the quarterback of the Jets. Drew, any opinion on that game before we get started on Thursday Night Football?
So Vaughn, I'm in a funny spot here with the Jets. I backed their season-long prop lowest scoring team pretty aggressively. Best price I got was 60-1. 60-1 to be the lowest scoring team. Now, did I get lucky that Aaron Rodgers got hurt in week 1? Obviously. But currently, we're in good shape there. Here's my conundrum. Do I root for Zach Wilson to do just enough to keep the job? Because if he gets shut out like 41-0 or something like that, he's almost certainly done. And then I've got to sweat some high variance from Trevor Siemian and who knows what else. So, I think the name of the game here for me is for Zach Wilson to do just enough to keep this job for a couple more weeks. But that said, it's a mismatch. I like the Jets defense a ton. They play amazing football. We'll break all this down again tomorrow in a little more detail. But I'm in a weird spot where I'm kind of cheering for no points, but looking good. And that's probably not possible if we're being honest. So I just want the Zach Wilson era to last as long as possible. Is that too much to ask?
You are one of the only people that wish that. But, it's all right. As long as we can fade them, take unders and everything, I'm cool with that because it's all about making money rather than rooting for certain players or teams, Drew. But I'm super excited about the Thursday Night Football matchup. Yeah. We have one on here. I want to say 2 straight Thursday Night Football bets for each of us. Lions are laying 1.5 on the road at Lambeau Field against the Packers. Total sit at 46. I'll let you kick it off before I give you a spicy bet for this one.
Okay. This is Lions' second Thursday game of the season already. That's weird, huh? Lions' second primetime game of the season through 4 weeks. I guess it's a new world, Vaughn. But even more importantly, this is a scene of or a revisiting of what was one of the best regular season games of the year last year. Sunday Night Football, Week 18. Packers trying to punch their ticket to be the 7th seed and go to the playoffs. Aaron Rodgers' last game as a cheesehead, and the Lions went into Lambeau and said, not so fast, my friends. You are going home. It was an inspired performance by the Lions. It showed you that the Lions match up fairly well with the Packers in a number of areas, and it basically begot organizational change in terms of the future of the Packers. It was a hugely consequential game, and I'm excited to kind of relive some of that. Coming into this game, the injury reports are what I think matter the most. It's a short week, obviously, and both of these teams are dealing with some pretty important stuff. Lions, defense looked amazing last week against the Falcons, but I think that was more on the Falcons. And their offensive line, which has been the sort of the spine, the strong, the element of this entire offense, is a little beat up. Basically, everybody missing practice. Now, I expect that they will all go, but the fact that they're playing through injuries and going up against a D-line for the Packers that's generating a ton of pressure this year, that I think spells a little bit of trouble that the Lions offense is really going to get going. And then on the flip side, we're expecting Aaron Jones to be back. We're expecting Christian Watson to be back. Romeo Doubs is, of course, playing, and Jordan Love has, he has a risk-taking nature to him where he's going to be throwing it down the field. And I think once the news hits the wire that all those guys are going to play, my fingers are crossed that this is going to tick up to 47, because what I really like here is the under. I think that, the idea that you're going to be able to integrate guys coming off of injury on a short week and have specific stuff in your game plan when weren't even really sure that they were going to be ready when you put together your game plan, I think that spells trouble for the Packers offense. And I think this is going to be a pretty tightly contested contest. Field goals, not touchdowns, red zone inefficiency. And I'm counting on Jair Alexander playing for the Packers. I'm counting on the Packers defense being at relatively full strength. And I think the strength of the Lions being somewhat limited with their O-line, and then the Packers skill position players not exactly having a ton of fluidity with the offense are the key angles here for me. So under at the close, fingers crossed, it's a 47.
Yeah, I do lean the under as well. I think if I was betting on either the spread or the total, that is the direction I'd go here. I know the total has hit 6 of the last 9 times these two teams met. The Detroit ATS has been very good against Green Bay historically, but I don't know if it's I'm willing to take that here. I mean, the Lions laying 1.5 is kind of fishy, in my opinion. Like you said, Drew, the Packers getting all these guys coming back, I think that's pretty substantial here. My bet is a first quarter team total. We are going under 3.5 points for the Packers in the first quarter. All right. Now, the Lions, so far this season, the Chiefs did not score a point in the first quarter on them, and neither did the Falcons. The Seahawks did score a touchdown on them. And when you look at the last 2 weeks for the Packers, they haven't scored a single first quarter point as well against the Saints and the Falcons. So I do like the under here. Jordan Love, as you said, he's been a little aggressive with his throws. He's had some impressive throws, and he's actually looking like he could be the future guy in Green Bay, in my opinion. But when you look at this, all the rust factors, we got guys come back from Green Bay. The first quarter defense for Detroit, and this being an NFC or a divisional matchup, I should say, you always lean towards the unders, especially on primetime football. So Packers, first quarter, team total, under 3.5 at -130 odds. Disgusting, Drew.
You like living on the edge, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, you want to take it right to the wire. Might as well go under 1/2 and get better odds. But no, I think that expecting them to maybe put together one drive, get a field goal opportunity. Yeah, okay. Not expecting. I don't think at least we're expecting weather. I haven't checked most recently. I know we are getting close to the month of October, which means you shouldn't be playing totals until you have some sort of read on what the weather is going to be like. But yeah, as I look at it right now, low winds. Man, summertime temperatures for a night in Green Bay, Wisconsin. So nothing to worry about weather-wise. But that said, I do think keeping them under a field goal is a reasonable expectation. And again, like when it comes to a short week, a ton of the the outcome of the game is determined by the work you put in the prior week, right? You just do not have enough practice, do not have enough time to integrate wrinkles into your playbook that are opponent specific. This is the reality. The fact that when the Packers were doing that work, they did not know who was going to be available, I think matters. And I think that's going to be a bit of a disruption for them. They may be even intending to lean on a little bit of like physical, push them around, lean on our offensive line, give A.J. Dillon more carries type of attack, which would catch the Lions by surprise and maybe be relatively effective strategy. All that said, though, I think we're going to be in for a game that lands in the low 40s.
Yep, I'm right there with you. And I love those breakdowns in general. Primetime football doesn't get much better than that, Drew. Before we get out of here, what's your best bet from the show? Anything you like the most?
Ooh, man. Kansas, probably.
Yeah.
Kansas catching those points.
Rock, chalk, Jayhawk, baby. I absolutely love that. I'm going the Nebraska team total under, but any of my team total unders I think are
I don't think I said this out loud, but I have Kansas's offense as borderline elite.
Yeah, they are. It's the defense that's the issue.
Yeah.
But I think they'll keep it close there. So that's something I'm going to look at. But our Saturday show, maybe I'll sprinkle Kansas money line in there. I know I'm on the Ole Miss money line against LSU as a little secret there. But that is all the time for Drew and myself. I want to give a special shout out to Dan and Adam, our producers as well. Don't forget to make sure you check out our NBC Sports shows on Amazon Music. Just over to amazon.com/NBC Sports. And, of course, head over to NBC for all fantasy and betting information. From Drew, Vaughn, and our favorite French bulldog, Pepito. We'll see you next time.